Okay, here's a thought. What if the most crucial decisions you make aren't actually guided by cold, hard logic? What if they're driven by something else, something more fundamental? Like, what if emotions aren't a flaw in how we decide things, but are actually, well, essential?
That's a fascinating way to put it, and it's exactly what we're plunging into today. Welcome, everyone. In this deep dive, we're going to unpack the really profound and often surprising role emotions play in shaping our judgments, our decisions, everything, really.
Yeah, we're sort of challenging that old idea, aren't we, that reason and emotion are these totally separate, opposing forces.
Exactly. We'll see how intertwined they actually are in, the choices you make every day.
All right, so let's maybe set the stage first. When we talk about emotions, what do we actually mean here? It's not just feeling happy or sad?
No, not just that. We're talking about these complex reaction patterns. They involve subjective feelings, yes, but also how we evaluate things, physiological changes like your heart racing, and even how we act. They're adaptive, really.
Yeah. Okay, adaptive. And decision-making is, well, basically choosing between options.
That's the core of it, the cognitive process of picking one path over another. Now, you mentioned challenging old ideas. Some of the evidence is pretty startling, isn't it?
It really is, especially thinking about people with specific types of brain damage. Tell us about that.
Right. This is where neuroscience really shook things up. You take individuals who tragically lose the physiological capacity for emotion, maybe damage to the ventromedial prefrontal cortex. What's shocking is, even though their rational thinking, their logic is perfectly intact, they become almost unable to make meaningful decisions. Simple life choices become impossible.
Wow. So without the feeling part, the choosing part just breaks down, even if they can logically weigh pros and cons.
Precisely. It suggests emotions aren't just some background noise or, an irrational distraction. They seem to be the fundamental drivers that actually push us to make a choice. Without them, we're kind of stuck, passive.
Okay, that flips the script. So emotions actually enable choice. That's huge. How do they steer us then? In what ways?
Well, think about it in two main buckets, often working beneath the surface. First, you have what we call integral emotions.
Integral.
Meaning they arise directly from the judgment or choice you're facing. Let's say you're considering a risky investment, maybe that hot new tech stock.
Okay.
If you feel anxious about that specific stock, that anxiety is an integral emotion. It might lead you to pick a safer option, even if the potential returns look amazing on paper. Your gut feeling, that anxiety, is shaping the decision.
Ah, okay. So the feeling about the thing you're deciding on directly influences the outcome. Makes sense. But what about just being in a bad mood generally? Does that leak into unrelated decisions?
Absolutely. And that's the second bucket, incidental emotions. These are feelings you happen to have at the time of a decision, but they're not actually related to the decision itself.
Like being grumpy because you got stuck in traffic and then snapping at a colleague about something totally different.
Exactly like that. Or, the classic advice, don't go grocery shopping when you're hungry. That hunger is an incidental emotion influencing your purchasing decisions. Or maybe feeling really happy after getting good news makes you overly optimistic about, say, a loan application. It's that emotional spillover.
That explains quite a lot, actually. So beyond these two types, integral and incidental, how else do emotions subtly guide us? What are the mechanisms?
Research points to, broadly, three main ways. First, emotions direct the content of your thought, what you actually focus on.
So?
Well, different emotions tend to trigger different ways of seeing the world, different appraisals. If you're angry, you might focus more on who's to blame for a situation. If you're sad, you might dwell more on what's been lost. It shifts your attention.
Interesting. Okay, so what we think about, what's the second way?
Second, they influence the depth of thought. Basically, how deeply you process information. So if you're in a negative mood, it might signal that something's wrong, that there's a potential threat. This can actually lead you to process information more carefully, more systematically. You scrutinize the details.
Right, in a positive mood.
A positive mood often signals safety, that things are okay.
Yeah.
So you might rely more on mental shortcuts, heuristics. You might be swayed more by, say, how attractive a spokesperson is rather than digging into the product specs.
So happy means maybe a bit more superficial thinking. Sad or anxious means more detailed analysis. That's counterintuitive almost.
It can seem that way. And the third mechanism is that emotions can activate specific goals, often without you even realizing it.
Goals? Like what?
Anger, for instance, might implicitly trigger a goal to fight back, to assert yourself, or change the situation. Sadness might increase a desire for immediate reward or comfort, maybe leading to impulse buys. Fear obviously triggers avoidance goals.
So it really matters which emotion we're feeling, not just whether it's positive or negative.
Definitely. The valence positive or negative is important, but it's too simple. Anger and sadness are both negative, right? But they have very different effects. Anger can sometimes reduce how much risk you perceive, make you feel more in control, more optimistic even.
Whereas fear does the opposite.
Exactly. Fear amps up risk perception, makes you cautious. And of course, the intensity matters hugely. Very strong emotions can overwhelm rational thought entirely, leading to decisions focused purely on immediate relief.
And you mentioned something about emotions being social too.
Oh, absolutely critical. Emotions are powerful communication tools. Expressing anger can signal dominance or grievance in a negotiation, maybe leading the other side to concede. Showing disappointment can evoke guilt, motivating someone to repair a relationship. They regulate our social world.
Okay, so emotions are clearly powerful, steering us in all these ways. If we know this, can we do anything about it? Can we make better decisions, or are we just sort of puppets to our feelings?
Not puppets, hopefully. We can definitely influence the process. There are strategies. One is simply giving yourself time, a cooling off period before a big decision. Another is reappraisal, consciously trying to reinterpret the situation that's causing the emotion.
Like reframing it.
Precisely. Though just trying to suppress the emotion often backfires. Awareness is key too, recognizing, okay, I'm feeling angry right now. Is that really relevant to this decision I need to make? That's spotting misattribution of incidental emotions.
Mindfulness, maybe. Being aware of your internal state.
That's a big part of it. Cultivating that awareness helps you recognize the feeling without necessarily acting on it immediately. It lets you bring your rational mind back into the loop to interpret the emotional signal and decide how much weight to give it. It's about balance.
So let's quickly recap then. Emotions aren't just this messy background noise. They're really powerful, pervasive forces.
Predictable forces even.
Right? Predictable. They integrate with our intellect, shaping what we think about, how deeply we think, and even the goals we chase. We see them driving personal choices, how we interact with others. They're like this fundamental communication system.
Absolutely. Which leads to a final thought for you, listening right now. Knowing that emotions are so deeply woven into the fabric of your decisions, how might that change how you approach your next big choice? Can you think back to a recent decision you made, and maybe now spot the subtle, powerful influence of emotion at play? Something to consider.
Thank you for watching. Before you go, a like and share would help others find it. Please subscribe for more journeys together.